if you could focus on how the jet stream is going to be influencing the temperature and weather patterns over the next few months.
Sure. Yeah, La Nina, when it's in effect, which is currently this winter, it's a weak La Nina, but the jet stream tends to have a little bit of a buckle down into the central part of the United States, allowing some colder Canadian and polar air to really infiltrate into the Midwest as far south as, Illinois and even further. So this rest of this month, we're going to be kind of in that phase of the jet stream oscillation and very cold air, some of the coldest air we've seen in at least a year. It's not going to basically the temperatures are going to be impactful enough that we'll probably need a cold weather advisory, which means wind chills of at least 10 to 15 below zero, all the way as cold as maybe 20 below zero. So, we're going to keep an eye on how impactful that's going to be, but certainly it's something that people are going to need to respond to and make sure they protect themselves from hypothermia and other cold related illnesses. Not a lot of snow with this cold, which is good. We've had a little bit of snow the past week or so, but this one is definitely going to be an impactful cold that potentially is something that La Nina may have influenced somewhat.
Okay, and then for the precip patterns over February, March, and April, with that jet stream in place, does that mean more storm systems will move closer to or not through our area?
That's the way it's looking right now with the precipitation trends that are projected by the Climate Prediction Center, above normal precipitation in that March, April, May timeframe. So, right in the middle of spring, usually that means storms. So we could potentially see maybe a little bit more active severe weather season this spring. And I know we need beneficial rains for some of the drought, but certainly storm impacts can be pretty high, and we have to keep an eye on that. Some of our highest tornado years have been during La Nina winters in terms of numbers of tornadoes. So we're certainly going to, have that on our radar, so to speak, and make sure we're prepared as a staff to handle those kinds of impacts.
Perfect. That should be all I need. Thanks for the quick turnaround on all of this.
Sure, not a problem.
All right, catch you later. Start off question. Really, it's just your name, and then can you spell it out and your title?
Sure, yeah, my name is Trent Ford. It's Trentford, and I'm the state climatologist of Illinois. I'm based at the University of Illinois at the State Water Survey.
Perfect. Okay. So Trent, we had last week the latest ENSO cycle update come out. What is the ENSO cycle?
Yeah, so ENSO cycle, or ENSO, stands for the El Nino Southern Oscillation, which is a pattern of different phases that are characterized by different levels of sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific. So in the Pacific Ocean, south of the equator, roughly between off the coast of South America, stretching all the way across to Australia, we have a large body of water that can take in a lot of heat. And depending on how much heat it's taking in and how that water is circulating, we can have different levels of either above average or below average temperatures. And that is generally what characterizes ENSO. When we're in an El Nino phase, we generally have warmer than normal sea surface temperatures in parts of the Pacific. And in La Nina phase, it is generally the opposite of below normal temperatures. Now, last winter, we were in an El Nino phase, and we transitioned away from that, and we've been sort of waiting and anticipating a transition to La Nina officially. It was actually originally forecasted to come on sometime in the fall. That didn't happen. It kind of lingered a bit without La Nina, and like you mentioned, the most recent ENSO update shows that we are now officially in a La Nina. This is officially a La Nina year, but it will likely be a very weak La Nina year, given that we just surpassed those thresholds. That being said, despite maybe the weakness of those sea surface temperature anomalies, given what's gone on so far, especially since the beginning of the year, and what's predicted for the next couple of months, it does seem like La Nina is going to be a major player, or has potential to be a major player in our winter climate here in central Illinois.
Awesome. That answered a lot of the first questions I was going to ask. Let's see, you answered that. So right now, the latest update has that for the next few months through April, they're confident that the La Nina is going to be in play. Are we expecting this to last throughout the whole year, or are we supposed to go back to more neutral transition?
It usually works is that most often El Nino or La Nina patterns don't persist in that phase beyond the spring and into summer. Sometimes that'll happen, but less often. More often, we'll see just a weakening of the El Nino or La Nina signal back into what we call neutral phase, which is neither El Nino nor La Nina. And that's what's predicted here for this La Nina event. There's a roughly 60% chance of La Nina persisting through April or February, March, April put together, and a better than 50 chance of La Nina weakening to or transitioning to ENSO neutral phase, which is kind of that La Nina dying off by the time we get into late spring or early summer.
Great. So with us now in a predicted going to a La Nina phase, how does that affect our weather patterns? Does it vary to what we were expecting a couple months ago for our winter season?
Yeah, so if we were to just take all the years where we have La Nina in the wintertime, irrespective of the La Nina strength, what we would see is these kind of general patterns of below normal temperatures in across the northern plains and upper Midwest that would lead to perhaps more frequent cold air outbreaks in our part of the country. So that is a signal that we do see during kind of a prototypical La Nina years where it's not necessarily consistently above or below normal temperatures, but we have a lot of temperature variability during those La Nina winters where we get more frequent cold air outbreaks, sort of like what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. One of the biggest signals, though, for our area, or for most of Illinois for that matter, during La Nina winters is above average precipitation. So wetter than normal conditions during La Nina winters that often extends into the spring as well. So when we look at the outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center that were just released today, here on Thursday, what we see is for the 1 month outlook for February and then the 3 month outlook for February, March, and April together, it's very La Nina-esque. It's slightly near normal to below normal temperatures across Illinois with stronger chances of above average precipitation, of wetter than normal conditions going from winter into early spring. And when you read it's interesting that the Climate Prediction Center puts out their maps of showing where it's above, where it's below, that sort of thing. We also have a text discussion and where the forecasters actually write down why they colored this blue or red or green or whatever. And what they're saying is that La Nina we're in a La Nina, it is noticeably affecting the positioning of the subpolar and subtropical jet streams, which affect our weather in the wintertime. And it's likely that it will continue to do so. And if it does, then it's likely we'll see that kind of prototypical, maybe colder than normal, more variable temperatures with the wetter than normal signal as well.
Great. Kind of my last question. You've answered everything awesome. It's just more trying to make it fit well to what I try to get.
Yeah.
For the jet stream, in our La Nina phase, it typically goes from the northwest across just south of Illinois. How does that affect, the above average precip that we're supposed to get? How does that kind of contribute to that?
Yeah, so it's actually really the entire kind of central to eastern Midwest that has a wetter than normal signal during La Nina years. And so, I wish I had a nice map of the US where you could kind of paint that subpolar jet stream. But often what will happen is we'll see kind of a ridging pattern, a bulging northward of that jet stream over the western US. And then that jet stream will dig down into a trough, which is, if you mount like mountains and troughs and mountains and valleys, a trough is just a dip in that jet stream right around the southern plains and then come back up into the Ohio Basin. Not only will winter storms generally follow that jet stream, it's kind of the general driving force of a lot of our mid-latitude cyclones and storms that we have, the kind of big storms we have in winter and spring. But that kind of setup when we get the trough to our south and west, gives us a lot more chances of bringing up some of that Gulf of Mexico moisture and producing a lot more precipitation than we typically get. So that's the kind of pattern that we tend to see more of in the La Nina winters. It doesn't mean it's persistent. We can get La Nina winters that are extremely wet, right? Like 2018-19, right? Where we persisted into the spring of 2019, a very, very strong jet stream that brought persistent moisture and a lot of flooding. And we can have other types of winters and springs, like a couple of years ago, where we don't really see that pattern established that much, just why there's variability between those La Nina years. But generally speaking, that trough, that jet stream troughing kind of over the south central U.S. and bringing that Gulf moisture up to us here in central Illinois, but really the whole kind of eastern Midwest is really the main reason why we see that kind of wetter than normal picture during La Nina winters.
Awesome. That covers everything I had to ask. I appreciate you, figuring out with the schedule and all the other stuff going on. I appreciate you spending the time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reaching out. Sorry again I couldn't make it in person, but thanks for being flexible.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. See you.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to watch more videos from Fox Illinois.